All right, I think I heard the door. Oh, there's a kitten. Did the UPS guy come, Miston? Hey, you show that scratching post who's boss. But anyway, on with the actual video here. That was cold. New egg box acquired, so let's head on upstairs. Hello again, Miston. Alright, up we go. Misty, I know you like opening boxes because you like going in them. Got this thing all set up. So there we go, and now it's about time to open up a box. So why don't we just break on into that box? Of course, we had to go get a random knife from the knife collection to open it. You're not supposed to cut towards yourself, but I'm pretty freaking careful. There we go, that should be good enough. Let's put that away. Let's just get in there. Oh, we got a bunch of packaging. I'm sure Misty will enjoy popping all of those. And then of course we've got the box out of the way. We got our Ryzen 9 5000 series processor, and as you can see, that's the 5950X. Just a very quick look around the box. But alright, why don't we go put that in the other computer now? Figured really quickly before we did that, we could just take a little bit closer look at it. And then you get a nice little sticker as well. And then when you put these in, they've got pins, so be very, very careful with these. Now it's time to install. Well, get the other processor out of there, then install, more like it. Well, just got done running some benchmarks and whatnot, so we can compare the two processors together. And we've got everything we need right here. It's gonna be pretty easy. Just got some paper towels to clean up the thermal compound that's on there. Thermal Grizzly here. And then we've got the obvious CPU itself right there. So all I'll need is my hands to undo the thumb screws on the water block. So now the only thing is, I hope the frickin' CPU doesn't come out, but I think I loosened up the thermal compound enough so it's not gonna do that. That usually tends to happen when it's been overnight or something and the thermal compound has time to harden up a little bit. But I've also let it sit there long enough so hopefully it doesn't just become goopy mess where it just gets all over the place. So why don't we just get this stuff out of the way and get that old CPU out of there. We got it all cleaned up and all disconnected. So now we just have to open this little, here we go, and be very careful. Here we go, because it will fall out, nothing holding it in. And there we go, there's the old 5900X. I'm gonna go put this right over here where it won't get, where its pins won't get messed up. Now, let's get the new one put in there. Gotta line up the holes, there we go. There we go. See, you gotta be careful with Ryzen. And when you're doing it on the side like this, so you can actually make a video. And just in case we get some CPU error, we know I probably just messed up the mounting. But if that happens, it happens. Hopefully it won't. Now let's get some thermal paste on there and get this water block connected back up. Well, there we go. We got our little X, marks the spot style. That seems to work best for these Ryzen processors. So now instead of fiddling with getting this thing back on camera, I'm just gonna get this camera out of my way so I can get that thing reattached. Well, we got it all back on there. I forgot how much of a pain in the ass it is to balance that thing one-handed while trying to screw the frickin' bolts on with the other. But we got it. Now I'm going to take this chance to dust this thing. It looks like it's in good need of a quick dusting. Then we'll boot it up, get everything back to stock, run the benchmarks. Then I have to go mess with Performance Boost Overdrive 2 and what do they call it? That curve stuff. And then I also have to mess with my RAM again and get that back up into what it was before. And then we'll see how it is apples to apples against the 5900X. So let's go get this thing all dusted out. Well, all right, we got it all pretty clean. Not flawlessly clean by any means, but I wasn't intending to do a deep clean. But we've got the power switch powered on, so let's see what happens.
And if this is true, then
keep forgetting my remote for my computer, or my LG also turns on my Vizio TV and whatnot. Alright, good. We've got a screen. Let's go into the bio. PCU installed. Alright, whatever. Hopefully that's not gonna make me have to get a new Windows key, but if it is, who cares? They're not that expensive. I can get one for like 20 bucks. And now it's gonna reset everything. There we go. Oh. Guess it restarted again. Let's might as well do this for you guys so you guys can actually see what it's doing. Well, alright. I don't know what exactly it's doing, so here we go. I was gonna say, it was probably just training the memory or something like that, but I'm gonna get at least the DDR4 XMP going, and then I'll start a benchmarking. So I just figured we'd quickly go over all the benchmarks from my old processor, this new 5950X stock, and with it, Performance Boost Overdrive 2'd with a curve optimizer. So let's get started here. First, we're going to start off with Ciniebench R20, and here is what my old 5900X got. We achieved 630 points for single core and 8,866 for multi. So pretty respectable scores. At least on single core, we're above every single CPU on this list. But anyway, why don't we just move on to the next benchmark. Now for Ciniebench R23, we achieved 1,621 over here for single core. And then we got 22,924 for multi. Again, very, very respectable scores. And we're above everything on single core on R23 still. But there are processors with higher single core than this. I'm not trying to say this is the best single core ever, but I'd say that's more than good enough. Let's move on to the next one. Now, Passmark, we got 7,340, which is apparently the 87th percentile. And here's what we got in each individual. For some reason, these newer GPUs of mine never do good on 2D. They're always really low, but they're usually 99 percentile and everything else. But here's what we got for graphic, there's memory, and then there's disk. So with that, on to the next one. Now for Geekbench 5, we got 1,741 for a single and a multi of 15,458. So good scores. Next, now for Superposition benchmark, I did 2 on this. First one is 1080p Extreme, and we got 13,031, minimum 75, average 97, and max 115. So now let's go see how it did at 4K. Now for the 4K results, we got 17,347 with a minimum of 106, average of 129, and a max of 156. And there's all of our temperatures and whatnot. So on to the next test. Now on to 3D Mark. We got 39,161, which is an excellent rating apparently. For graphics, we got 50,034, physics 36,769, and a combined score of 15,466. So now on to the next one. Moving right along to Time Spy, we got 19,426, which is great. Graphics score of 20,600, 120. CPU score of 14,630. So we're already scoring really good with even my old processor here. 5900X is no slouch. But on to the next test. Just for fun, I decided to run Port Royale, and we got 13,614. Don't know how CPU dependent this is. It's probably more GPU dependent, seeing as though I believe this is a ray tracing benchmark, but I figured we'd run it just for fun. So now we'll move on to some game tests. Alright, Shadow of the Tombraider benchmark here. Turned everything to low. No ray tracing, no none of that. Just basically making the CPU do most of the work here. And here's how many frames we rendered. And then our average FPS here is 184. Video driver, all of that stuff. And then here's this screen for a little bit more info on our FPS minimum, maximum, averages, and whatnot. And I think that's good enough. You can always pause if we move a little too fast. And we can go on to the next benchmark. Now we're going to do some Assassin's Creed Vallhala benchmark. We just, again, everything on low. Here's our system info right here. So it's still the 5900X. Here's all of our game settings here. We averaged 167, minimum of 23, and then a max of 251. And then here's our 1% lows and 0.1% lows. And then here's the graph. And then CPU MS and GPU MS and RAM or VRAM. So on to the next test. Okay, so Red Dead Redemption 2 benchmark now. Everything on super low. We got a minimum of 98, maximum of 226, with an average of 169. Pretty good, definitely pretty good. But we got one more test, so let's go check it out. Well, this is annoying. Didn't notice this until after I had already, you know, changed processors and whatnot, but it kind of totally destroyed my average frames here, so that's missing. But at the very least, I guess we can look at these and the graph, but that really annoys me. Kind of makes this almost useless, but hopefully it's not like this on the other 2 tests that I did with the 5950X, but I guess we'll go find out right now, because it's time to get started on the 5950X benchmarks. Starting off again, we're just going to go in the exact same order we did with the 5900X. So stock, we ran Ciniebench R20, and we got 621 single core, which is to be expected. This isn't running performance boost overdrive or anything, this is just bone stock. And then we got 9,603 for multi, which beats it, which beats my old one by about 1,000 points, almost. More like 870 or something like that. But anyway, on to the next one. On to Ciniebench R23, we got 1,505 for single core, and then for multi, we got 24,685. So we smoked my old one in multi-core, but it's to be expected. Way more cores on this one. But obviously a little less single core because we're not running performance boost or anything yet. So on to the next test. On to Passmark now. We got 7,327. And here's what we got for CPU. Again, 2D always look terrible. Here's what we got for 3D, memory, and disk. And then, of course, if I'm going too fast, you can always pause. And on to the next one. So on Geekbench 5, we got 1,708 for single and 16,082 for multi. Actually, way closer. The old CPU got way closer to multi than I would have thought. But I bet it won't happen once we actually put performance boost overdrive on this thing. But on to the next benchmark. Superposition results now. 1080p Extreme. 13,092, minimum 75, average 97, and a max of 114. So let's go see how it did on 4K. On 4K, we got 17,440 with a minimum of 106, an average of 130, and a max of 157. So pretty damn good indeed. So on to the next one. Now on 3D Mark Firestrike, we got 41,336. We got 49,220 for graphic, physics 38,479, and a combined of 19,780. Very impressive considering this is stock. But now it's time to see what we get on the next one. On Time Spy, we got 19,505 with a graphics score of 20,808 and a CPU score of 14,398. This thing's a nice GPU or CPU. Nice GPU too. Obviously the 3090 is a beast, but that's besides the point. This is more about the 5950X. And now let's go see how we do on Port Royal. Now on Port Royal, we got 13,716, which is pretty damn close to the old one, which it should be, because like I said before, pretty sure this is mostly a GPU benchmark. And now we can get on with the game benchmark. Starting off with Shadow of the Tomb Raider, we got 39,175 frames rendered. We're at the same settings as we were before. We averaged 250 FPS here, which is way higher than the other CPU. That's very impressive. Wonder if there was just some weird setting. I ran it a couple times though, and it always got around the same on the other one, so I don't know what's up with that, but here's the rest of the stuff. And with that, we'll move on to the next benchmark. So now, doing Assassin's Creed Vallhala benchmark. We're at the same settings as we were before, except for now we have our 16-core processor, and we got 168 for average, 105 for minimum, so way better on minimum, and a max of 234. Lowest, or 1% here, 139, and 0.1%, 115. Here's our graph, our CPU milliseconds, GPU milliseconds, and VRAM. So, now let's go see how Red Dead fares. So, on Red Dead, we got a minimum of 74, a maximum of 224, and an average of 163. So, respectable, but I think the other one beat it a little bit, but it should. But, let's go see how Forza fared, and hope it doesn't get all distorted like it did on the 5900. Nope, we lucked out. It worked just fine on the 5950X, so here's all of our settings. Here's our benchmark graph, which at least we can still compare with the old processor, and we can still compare all of this with the old processor. We were just missing this part, and this very important part. But at least we can compare these stock versus performance boost overdrive, so long as this, again, doesn't mess up. Speaking of that, though, why don't we go and move on and see how it does with performance boost overdrive 2 and a little bit of negative curve optimization. Starting off with Ciniebench R20 again. Now we're getting 636 points, which is ahead of my other CPU here. And we got 11,357 for multi. Very, very, very good. I knew this thing was going to wake way up once I started doing performance boost overdrive, and I am not disappointed. Time to move on to R23. So R23, we got 28,976 for multi, and we got 1,633, which is better than we got before and still above everything here. So now let's go check out the next one. So now we got a really low pass mark, but that's because our 2D graphics mark was horrible. Again, way lower than usual, no idea why. But we got good CPU and we got good 3D, although it went down a little there too. And then here's the rest of our stuff. So this one's a little peculiar. This is one of the few ones that did way worse than the rest when it was stopped. But whatever. It's just a silly old test. Time to see what it gets on the next one though. And here we go with Geekbench 5 here. We got 1,763 for single, so we're doing real good there. And then for multi, we got 17,475. So this got way higher scores with performance boost overdrive. Very good. And now we can move on to the next one. Superposition 1080p extreme. We got 13,034 with an average of 74, or a minimum of 74, excuse me, average of 97, and a max of 131. So now let's go check out those 4K results. Now for 4K, we got 17,466, minimum of 108, average 130, max of 157. Very, very good. So now let's move on to some 3D marks. So now we got 42,552, which is excellent. Graphics score 50,161, physics 40,341, and a combined score of 20,680. Very good. Very, very good. I'm very impressed with that. And now we can move on to the next test. And now we got 19,468 for ×5 here with a graphics score of 20,546 and a CPU score of 15,007. So now let's go check out Port Royale. So Port Royale, we got 13,749, which is again pretty close to what we were getting before, which to be expected for a more GPU-orientated benchmark, but still fun to include. Anyhow, time to move on to game benchmark. And now for Shadow of the Tomb Raider, again, we jumped right up in performance here. We got 42,000 frames rendered, 273 average FPS now. Everything else is the same. Here's their system info. Here's some more info. And now we can move on to the next one. All right, now for Assassin's Creed Vallhala, we average 164. We lost a little on minimum, but not by much, and then got a max of 220. Here's our 1% lows and our 0.1% lows. Here's our little graph, our CPU milliseconds, GPU milliseconds, and VRAM. And now on to Red Dead. So Red Dead achieved a minimum of 87, a maximum of 240, and an average of 168, which I do believe is better than we got before. And now we can move on to our last benchmark and hope to God that it's not destroyed and all messed up like it was with our 5900X. Nope, we lucked out. It actually worked, but it actually looks like we lost some FPS. But these things can be weird. This is a more GPU dependent game anyway, so something must have just happened. But hey, sometimes you do good on the benchmark, sometimes you do a little worse. You can't win them all. But I'd say that's about it for this video. So why don't we just wrap it on up now? Well, alright. That about wraps it up for this video. Upgrade was a smooth success. Nothing bad happened. The only thing I discovered is this thing runs hotter than my old processor when you're rendering videos. So unfortunately, it gets up to 85, 86 degrees Celsius versus like the 79, 80 that my old CPU got up to, so I'm gonna have to upgrade the cooling solution a little bit. These cool looking RGB fans just aren't cutting it. So I'm gonna upgrade me to a 560 millimeter radiator with just some normal fans that are good at pushing air through them. Got plenty of RGB in the reservoir, power supply, CPU block, RAM, and motherboard anyway, and keyboard. So, you know, we're good. We got RGB covered. We can get rid of some fans, I think, for performance. But anyway, definitely we'll be making a video of that when all the stuff comes. It's already ordered. Got some cool black, awesome coolant too. That's supposed to be the best, even if it's only the best by a couple degrees. Anyway though, enough rambling. Time to end this video. Hopefully you guys enjoyed it. It's not the most interesting video in the whole wide world, but I think the new cooling upgrade video will be a lot cooler. Anyway though, thanks for watching. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video, and until the next video, peace out guys.